Welcome in to the Stardom Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen McKinney, joined as always by Ashton Mitchell and Jacob Stevens. We're getting closer and closer and closer to the fantasy playoffs. We're going into week 11 here, so got a few more weeks to earn your spot. So today we're going to be talking about we're going to do a few interesting segments. We're going to do prepping for playoffs, which is some people that we're kind of targeting to possibly trade for or trade away, given their playoff schedule and what we've seen so far. We have a keeper drop segment, which is some guys over the 50% owned threshold that are kind of on the edge of being on your roster or not, and some guys that we're going to talk about if it's worth keeping them or just go ahead and get rid of them. We're going to be talking a little bit of news, some of our bet results from last week, and the first half of matchups for week 11. So big show doc to go through today, guys. But first, of course, I want to check with how you guys doing today. How are you feeling? How are your teams looking? How's it going?
It was an okay weekend coming into a 2-for-2 outcome. Or 2-for-4, excuse me. I had a close matchup, and I think our main league lost a shout out to Scott Barlow, who took me at the end there by a few points. But
I was rooting for him. I needed you to lose.
I bet you did, you son of a.
He's been riding the Cook train these last couple weeks.
I know, and that wasn't even a great game for Cook, but it was enough to get by. So. But yeah, outside of that, doing okay, hanging in there. What about y'all?
Yeah,
How'd y'all end up this week?
I had a couple of heartbreaks. Lost the game on the Hail Mary. The guy I was playing in the Megala Bowl, the big tournament that the footballers put on. It was literally, if I won the game, I was in the playoffs because it's the top 3 teams in the league. And this guy had Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins, and he threw the Hail Mary, and it was all over. And then Lamar Jackson needed to score 23 points. He scored 21 point something.
Was that the best play of the season so far?
That was pretty insane.
I mean, best for them, worse for me, but it's whatever.
Yeah, it's got to be in the top 2 or 3. I mean, I think you can make an argument for a couple other plays, but that was a wild play.
Unreal.
Yeah, it was.
And right before that was the Stephon Diggs touchdown, right? I mean,
yeah.
But
yeah, my fantasy performance was probably the most disappointing of the whole season.
Oh yeah, that was probably one of my favorite things to see this weekend.
And 3 of my 4 leagues, I scored under 65 points. I scored 40-something points in one league.
44, if anyone
50-something in
wanted to know
another, and then 60-something in one more. But
you wanna break that down as to what happened in each of those teams?
My kicker was the highest scoring player on one of my teams.
All right.
Yeah, and none of my players scored over 10 points in my starting lineup, which I mean, what would you expect of someone who scored 44 points? But what really happened is my stars just really underperformed. DK Metcalf, of course, was hot garbage with 3 points.
You got Ramsey.
Will Fuller, disappointing, 6 points.
That was a wind game.
I had the great Derek Carr popping up 7, Michael Thomas with 3, Melvin Gordon with 4. I mean, it was just everybody was doing great for me. So, yep.
So Carr was really one of your star performers.
Right. Yeah. I mean.
Okay. Well,
I think he was second on the team behind Brandon McManus with 8 points. So.
There you go.
Whew. I thought it was like a high scoring kicker at least. So sorry to hear that.
Everything was under 10. Okay.
And listeners, please, continue to listen to our awesome advice each and every week.
It was a bad week.
Man, the weather got me in a couple games. I didn't think about it, and then it kind of came up last minute in a couple games, and I got. You know what I mean?
It's easy to get got these days. All right, well, think that's enough wasting some time here. We got a lot
Enough
to go
chit-chat.
through.
He doesn't want to dwell on the past right now.
That's fair. You got to move past it.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we'll start with the news. There's only one piece of real news besides
News and notes.
He got you. He got you good.
I'm about sick of these drops.
Oh no! Now I'm playing all sorts of
All
songs.
right, man. Now you're just getting trigger happy.
Yeah, don't get too happy with catching me off guard. But
Sorry about that.
outside of injury news, there's one newsworthy note to make here. Antonio Brown found himself in the headlines again today. To I guess no one's surprised. He's been playing back reinstated for 2 weeks now, and here it comes right back in the threshold. He was involved in an incident last month where he threw a bike at a security shack. Apparently,
It was like this homeowners association.
the
Where he
NFL and Tampa Bay were both apparently unaware of this situation. But
It was before he signed. It
Right.
was before he signed.
Yeah.
So he kind of did a
We
sneak
sure
attack.
he wasn't excitedly just giving away bikes?
Well, apparently he threw it at a security guard, and he smashed a camera at the shack or like wherever the security building.
league
He wasn't
is-
happy.
Is currently investigating the matter. We don't have
No
too much-
charges. I do know
too much
that. No
news on
charges
it.
pressed.
Right. But yeah, the league is reviewing especially based on his history of what we have with Antonio Brown for over the last 2 years or so.
Being a wild animal.
Yeah, I mean, this situation could escalate quickly, or it could disappear just as easily. So, if you are an Antonio Brown manager, make sure to at least keep an eye on the news. I think you had a little bit of hope after last week. You seemed to be a little bit more involved in the offense. So
After they said they wanted to use them less. Makes
So-
sense.
just something to monitor.
Logic's there.
That is it for news, though. Just Antonio Brown being a clown.
Ooh.
As always.
Nice rhyme, dude.
Thank you. The next part that I want to go over is really just made me happy based on my disappointing fantasy results was my
That's why you're bringing this up.
was my impressive bet results from last week. Let's remind the listeners of what our bets were. The first one wasn't pretty on either side. I'll tell you that. Melvin Gordon versus Mr. Philip Lindsay was the bet that me and Ashton had. Neither of them were great. I'll tell you that much. I just told you I had Melvin Gordon playing in my league, and he scored all of 4.6 points. And somehow that was enough to eke over the win for Philip Lindsay, who I think had like 3 yards. So, Ashton, you're really stacking up some wing orders here. We're going to have to cash those out at some point.
Freaking daggone it.
And then the last one was the Moon Man, who Jacob
Moon man
was feeling confident with,
stayed on Earth.
versus Justin Jefferson, who had a great game. Obviously, Justin Jefferson won that side.
That was a ridiculous game against the Bears. I couldn't
yeah.
believe that he did. I mean, that was like, oh, that was a lot. I was like, okay, he's got like 75 yards. That's a pretty good game. And then he ends up with like
136,
135 or something. Yeah.
So I'm getting all kinds of chicken. I got 3 chicken wings coming at some point. And then I got some chicken strips coming at a lot of points. So I'm just got to prepare for chicken.
This was strips only, though. You remember that, okay?
Right. No meal. I remember.
Thank
I
you.
remember.
Thank you. I wasn't that confident.
Thank you. All right. Well, that does it for our bet results. And we're just flying through these segments here. Next up, we have a new segment for you guys. We're talking keep or drop. As we said, we're getting closer to the playoffs. These are guys that have to be rostered in 50% of leagues or more, that are kind of on the fringe of being dropped by, I would assume, a lot of fantasy managers here. So I don't want to harp too much on each individual player, but I want to get your take on a couple guys here that I kind of picked out to see if you're still interested in rostering them, holding on hope, or if you're ready to move on and look for greener pastures out in the waiver wire. We'll start with all, basically, of Baltimore players outside of anyone named
Disappointment.
Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews. So let's start with J.K. Dobbins. Is he worth still being rostered?
I say no. I actually just dropped him myself. I was activating Kenyon Drake from IR, and it's just now with Ingram back, like there's no telling what's going to happen.
Right.
Like when he was gone, there was a chance that him or Edwards could do something for you, but now I just think it's all wrecked.
Yeah, I'm not interested in rostering any running back right now from Baltimore.
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins is 66% owned in ESPN leagues. What about Mark Ingram, 50% owned?
Nope.
No.
Okay. And then the
Baltimore's
next-
been rather disappointing in fantasy players this year.
Oh,
Very true.
absolutely.
So
What about Hollywood Brown? He's 86% owned, and he's wide receiver 50 on the year.
God, I'll let y'all go. I need to
not
take a deep
good.
breath with this.
Not good. I mean, if you can drop him, I'd drop him. I don't see what the hold. I mean, we do know they have a good schedule for the playoffs, but I don't think that's mattered so far this year with any big matchups. Really,
aside from Pittsburgh in Week 12, I mean, their matchup, their schedule looks great. I mean, but I just don't trust that.
the passing offense isn't there. I mean, Mark
No.
Andrews is having a hard enough time, but obviously he's a tight end. That's why we're saying you can keep him. But yeah, I think I'm out on Brown right now. Yeah, I think you could keep him on your roster if you got the space. He doesn't need to completely be cut off, but
I say if he doesn't have a good game this week against Tennessee, then he's worth getting rid of one way or another.
yeah.
Like, let's just look here at the waiver wire, some of these wide receivers that are available.
Well, this week is ugly.
Would you pick up Jacoby Myers, who's 38% owned, and drop Hollywood Brown?
Probably
Yeah, it's worth a conversation.
coming
Right.
from Cam Newton.
Yep. What about someone like Michael Pittman? Who
Yes.
looks like
Heck yeah.
he's getting part of
Yes.
the offense
Yep.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah, Michael Pittman.
I'd take a hot hand over keeping Hollywood Brown right now.
Yeah,
Whose
only
hands are
6%
blocks of ice.
About Sammy Watkins coming back from the injury. He's only 31% owned at this point.
I got to see something out of him before I go picking him up.
Yeah, I mean, Watkins has been surprising to me this year with his usage. I mean, they've definitely picked up his targets in comparison to the past, but I still think it's hit or miss with Watkins on matchups. So that's probably a little bit lower on my list. I think there's some value somewhere else that you can maybe get for Hollywood right now.
Okay. Let's move over to the next guy here. We got Devin Singletary.
See ya.
Currently 85% owned. You interested in
you.
keeping him?
No.
Would you pick up Kalen Balazs for Devin Singletary?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
You mean this week's like a smash start for him? So it depends on like what you're like. You need
Right.
to win to get into playoffs.
Yeah, but are you really holding out hope that somehow Devin Singletary becomes a huge part of this offense?
No, I'm not.
All right. What about AJ Green? 72% owned. He looked like he was coming together there for 2 weeks, and then last week he goosed you, and back in week 8, 2.9 points.
I think his targets are going to be matchup dependent, and even when he gets heavy amounts of targets, he's not hitting the
He's
numbers.
not the
that
number one. I mean,
Yeah,
T.
he's
Higgins
not
is
hitting what he should
100%
hit.
Take that role,
Mhm.
and Tyler Boyd's been great. I
Yeah.
think he's just kind of he's an afterthought for me. I mean, they still try to get him targets, but it's just not doing anything with them. So it doesn't matter how many you keep getting and keep getting. I think you'll run into a couple decent games like he did, but more likely than not, he's gonna poo
Mm-hmm.
all over you.
What about Jarvis Landry? 88% owned.
I'd keep Landry.
Wide receiver 52. 2 spots behind Hollywood Brown.
Yeah, it's been weird. OBJ's gone though. I mean, somebody's got to catch the freaking ball out there aside from Austin Hooper. I know they run the ball a lot, but but it's also at the same time, he's got a broken rib. Like, is it ever going to start feeling better? Like maybe in a week or two, or is it just going to be kind of what it was? But they've had some weird weather games too. Cleveland has, but I don't know. I think I'd keep him on my bench and hope for the best because we've seen him be a very consistent receiver for the most part of his career.
Yeah, their playoff schedule is Baltimore week 14, the Giants week 15 in New York, and 16 at home against for the Jets. So
Yeah.
I think you can get rid of Landry. I think
I think
better
there's
options.
better options out there.
I'd take Jacoby Myers over Jarvis Landry. Let's move on to. I mean, even look at guys like Tim Patrick. It's like 24% owned, and I know he got ejected from last game, but he's been better.
Pow. Pow.
Let's talk about the Denver backfield, Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay. What do you do with those two guys? Melvin Gordon is 97% owned. Philip Lindsay is 72% owned. You look at the performances you've got over the last 2 weeks now that Philip Lindsay's been healthy. Gordon's giving you 4.6 points and 3.2 points, and Lindsay's giving you 0.2 points and 2.3 points. So what do you do with them? Are you considering dropping them at this point, or where are you guys at with those two?
I'm okay with dropping Lindsay.
I'm okay with dropping both if you can get value. I mean, I think Gordon still has some value there.
Yeah, he's got that touchdown potential he's always had.
Right. So I still think there's value with Gordon. I think it's just, where your roster spots, need some extra help. But I wouldn't use them as an RB1 or 2. I mean, I personally, if you have them, if you need them in a flex spot, someone that has the potential to give you a little bit more boost with a higher ceiling, potential with certain matchups, but outside of that, he's not consistent enough for me to want to hold on to. So
yeah, I think the worst part about those two is the last 2 weeks you thought were great plays. I mean, they had Atlanta and Las Vegas, which should be great matchups for running backs, and they've really underperformed. So if you are keeping either of them, I think they deserve to be on the bottom of your bench until someone shows you otherwise. I don't think they can be started right now, at least.
And Gordon was your guy, right, at the beginning of the season, Stefan?
Yeah, I mean, he had a good start to the season, even with Philip Lindsay. And it seemed like, they wanted to get him involved. They paid him a lot of money. And then the last 3 weeks of he's disappeared. He's been, not a big part of the offense. And I don't know if that's game script or what it is, but
what does carries look like?
You got to hold out hope. 11, 6, and 8 over the last 3 weeks, where he started the year.
That's not
15,
good.
19, 8, 23, 17.
Lindsay's have been 6, 8, and 4. I mean, they're just not running the ball very much.
Yeah, I mean, 4 of the 5 first games for Melvin Gordon, he gave you 14, 15, 24, and 11. So double digit in 4 of the first 5. So you expected him to be a big part of the offense, and then he just disappeared. So I think you can hold Gordon just to see. Hopefully he gets that pace going again. What about Le'Veon Bell? We had high hopes for him coming into Kansas City. 81% owned.
I think that was Jacob's way of saying
these are scissors.
Nobody can see you. You got to hear you. Everybody's watching.
These are scissors, and he's been cut. Roll over to YouTube. See what I'm doing.
He has a tough matchup schedule. I mean, he's got Vegas, Tampa Bay, Denver, Miami, New Orleans. Then it eases up a little bit, week 16. But
Vegas is pretty friendly. But Tampa Bay, Denver, Miami, New Orleans, that's not that fun.
I mean, it's the same situation that you see with Gordon and Lindsay. Like, neither him or
the timeshare
are getting carries, though. Like, they're really, really low in carries. Do you hold out hope that maybe he gets more involved in the offense, or are you ready to move on from him?
I dropped him this past week before he had the bye, so I could pick up another player.
Yeah.
Okay. What about Joshua Kelly? He's right at the threshold, 55%. Now you got Justin Jackson on the IR. Kalen Ballage looks to be a bigger part of this offense, though, than just Joshua Kelly. Are you holding on to Joshua Kelly?
They've been all over the place with that backfield. I mean, if you're in a really tough spot with running backs, he might be someone to stash on your bench just to see. But I'm not starting him. Yeah,
I think with Austin Eckler possibly coming back next week, I think you can move on. I think you can probably find a better play because I don't think you're really ever going to start Joshua Kelly, or if you are, like you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel, and you can probably find a better fill in week by week at the running back position. So
JD McKissick.
Yeah, so I think you move on, try to find better options because I don't think he doesn't really need to be on your roster. Like, what's the best case scenario for Joshua Kelly? Like, we've already seen the best case scenario. Austin Eckler's got hurt. Justin Jackson's got hurt. They go out and pick up Kalen Ballage off the NFL waiver. So it's like, obviously, if his own team is picking up people on the waiver wire, he should probably be dropped. What about Latavius Murray? He's 59% owned.
I think with Drew Brees being injured and, they're going to use Taysom Hill a lot. Jameis Winston's more than likely just going to come in as the QB1. But Sean's going to use Hill. So I think Kamara's going to still get a bunch of work, but I think you're going to see a tick in the right direction for Latavius Murray as well. They're not going to want to overuse Kamara. I personally would hold on to Latavius Murray if you have him.
Especially if you're the Alvin Kamara owner.
Yeah.
I would say you could feel pretty confident holding on to him. I don't think it's necessary to hold on to him just because, he's going to, unless you're very desperate and want about 4 or 5 points, that's pretty much what he provides on the reg. So if there's someone out there that you need, like, let's say you want to drop him and pick up Kalen Ballage for this week, like I would do that in a heartbeat. If if there's a spot start you can make, I don't think you need him unless you're the Kamara owner. I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, I think if you have great depth at running back, if you have 3 solid players that you're playing every week, and you want like a super handcuff just in case Kamara goes down, he's great. Like, because if Kamara goes down, that Latavius Murray is going to be a great fantasy option that you can plug in and play should one of your other options go down. But I think if you're trying to find someone week by week to actually play and start, I think you can drop Latavius Murray for a better option to play. But I'm not just dropping him to drop him. I'm dropping him to pick up someone that I'm actually going to play.
Yeah, he's only had 1 game this year where he's had touchdowns, and he got 2 touchdowns against Detroit. That was his best game of the year. But he's getting an okay amount of carries, 11, 8, 10, and 9 in the past 4 games.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a breakout, touchdown dependent player, he has running back 1 talent. He's just a backup against Kamara. So, but I think you might see those numbers bounce a little bit higher now that Drew Brees is out for the next few weeks.
Yep. What about Jerick McKinnon? So he actually hasn't been bad. He's running back 18 on the year. He's been decent. The question is here, like, now he has an injury designation. Kyle Shanahan's already they're on bye this week. So Kyle Shanahan's already come out and said that he expects Raheem Mostert to be able to play after the bye, be designated off the IR, and he expects Tevin Coleman to possibly have a chance to play in week 12. So with those 2 guys possibly coming back, are you holding on to Jerick McKinnon, or are you ready to move on from him?
I think you can move on from McKinnon. Bye week 11, then they face the Rams, Buffalo, and then Washington. That's actually a pretty tough matchup lineup there. So I think you could probably move on, especially with Mostert potentially coming back.
Nothing out of you, Jacob. You're in agreement.
I'm in agreement.
And the last person I wanted to run by you is Ryan Tannehill. He's been up and down. He's been pretty down the last couple of weeks, but he has a really, really tough schedule coming up with Baltimore and Indianapolis in the next 2 weeks. And then his playoff schedule is not terrible, though. He's got Jacksonville, Detroit, and then Green Bay to wrap it up. What are you doing with Ryan Tannehill?
I'm keeping Tannehill. They just played Chicago and Indianapolis, and those were pretty much his 2 worst games of the year. So,
right. But you have to basically hold him and then sit him this week and next week, I would assume. So you have to roster someone else, another quarterback, and at least for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I would say it depends on your situation. If you've got someone better, like you got a starter, and he's your backup,
Right.
you could probably drop him for 2 weeks and hope for the best. But I think I like the way he's played this year for the most part, except for a couple down games.
Okay.
QB 11.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Not
I think
bad.
if your roster can afford it, I would keep him on your roster. But he's not my QB1 for the next 2 weeks. I mean,
Yeah.
it might be one of those things where you have to see what the best play is for each matchup for the next 2 weeks. Hopefully, you're not in that position. Hopefully you have another option, but it could be tough.
Yep. All right. Well, that does it for the guys that I prepared. That were over that 50% mark. There might be some others out there that you guys are curious about. If you do have any on your team that you want to know about, feel free to send them to any of our socials, and we'll be happy to answer that question for you. If you're looking for a waiver wire pickup and considering dropping someone, and you're just kind of on the fence about it, send them in to us, and we'll be happy to help you out. The next little segment we're going to talk about is prepping for the playoffs. As we said, we're only a few weeks out. It's time to get up your roster and prepare yourself to possibly win that championship. So it depends on your situation, of course, but if you're feeling confident that you're making the playoffs and you can afford to make some moves, we have some guys that we're looking to possibly trade for and some guys that we're looking to trade away. And most of this is surrounding their playoff schedule and what we've seen out of these defenses to this point. Things can change. But at this stage in the season, only a couple weeks out from the playoffs, these are some of the guys that we're targeting and some of the guys that we're looking to possibly move on from if we can get good value for. Let's start with the players that we're excited for in terms of what their playoff schedule looks like, some guys that might be able to win you that championship and that you can kind of exploit these matchups with. Let's start at the quarterback position with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, his playoff schedule looks like Cleveland, Jacksonville, and the Giants. And just to make sure our listeners are aware, this is just for standard playoff leagues. So this is week 14, 15, and 16. Make sure you look at the playoffs and your league might be different, but this is pretty standard playoff schedules here. Is Lamar Jackson kind of on top of your list for the running backs that you're looking to, quarterbacks you're looking to trade for based on the playoff schedule? He might not be the best quarterback to have, but based on what we see for the playoff schedule, he hasn't been the Lamar Jackson that you drafted him to be, quarterback 9. Are you guys looking to trade for Lamar Jackson?
It could definitely work out in your favor if you're able to snag him for the playoffs. You're going to get the usage out of his legs. My only concern is the passing game with him. And it's unfortunate because they have the weapons there in Baltimore. It's just not working out the way you would want it to. But, playoffs or the push for playoffs and real life football, are approaching as well. And that always changes play scheme for, a lot of different teams. And maybe this will unfold some new opportunity for showing the Lamar Jackson of old from last year, his pocket presence. And then also, his accuracy had increased tremendously last year. So maybe we'll see that old Lamar come back to life. But regardless, the leg works there. He's going to still put up a decent amount of points. I think it's definitely worth a snag if you can get him.
Yeah, I agree. I actually traded for him in one of my leagues, and he's already starting to seem like he's kind of climbing back up a little bit higher. Had a couple good games now. Not what we saw last year, but the way the schedule looks, it looks like he does have the opportunity to get the passing game back on track. So yeah, I'm all in on some Lamar in my life.
And let's just give me like a certain value estimation here. Like, so if you're looking to trade for Lamar, and you're trying to make that move, where do you see Lamar's trade value really lingering around right now? Like, would you give up a wide receiver 2 for Lamar, wide receiver 3 for Lamar? Like, what do you think is an appropriate trade for some of our listeners to kind of go after Lamar Jackson?
I mean, it all naturally with any of these discussions that we're about to dive into, it all depends on your roster and your needs versus the team that you're trying to trade
And the team
to.
that you're trading to,
Right.
obviously, you know,
Right.
you got to see if they can trade away. If he is there, let's say he's got Justin Herbert and Lamar Jackson, something like that.
Well, sure, but I'm saying in terms of if we consider,
But
I
I'm
mean,
saying you got to see what's it's based on their team too. You
of
can't
course,
just, you know what I'm saying? Like if they need a wide receiver, they're more likely to trade you. I would say a wide receiver too is fair, or someone that's kind of borderline if you've got the depth and they need it. You know, it's really a lot of trading is based on both
it's
your
all roster
rosters,
makeup.
but these guys we're talking about are going to be good for the playoffs, and that's what it's really. I mean, you might be paying a little bit more than you want to if this owner doesn't need to trade him away or whatever, but it's going to be worth it.
Right.
Got to be worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to kind of get a gauge here in terms of. I understand it's built on roster makeup and how they are, but like I think we always say, you know, running backs are the most valuable position. Then you can look at wide receivers, and then you're probably going quarterback, tight end. So with that in mind, like obviously, a running back one in exchange for a quarterback one isn't going to be an even trade for the majority of people. So that's why I was trying to just get an understanding of where you guys are at in terms of someone that you probably be willing to get rid of for someone like Lamar Jackson.
Okay. Let me see.
I mean, if my roster could afford it, I'm thinking someone like, you know, Calvin Ridley. You know, if I have another wide receiver one, you know, Calvin coming back off that foot or ankle injury, still going to get plenty of looks in Atlanta, still has plenty of value, and is someone I think you could propose in that trade setup, depending on the other team's need. I mean, that's the biggest thing is like say they're just.
I would say Calvin Ridley is a little too sweet.
Yeah, that's a little too rich for me too. I think I'm looking more. If I was going wide receiver, I think I'd go middle to back and wide receiver 2. I think I would look at a guy.
Mike Evans special, something like that. Is that too low?
I think that's too low. Yeah.
No. I mean, Mike Evans is wide receiver 11, so I'm looking at the wide receiver 2.5 to 3 range. I'm looking at a guy like I would trade away Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, like some of these, because you got to think like if you're struggling for a quarterback, you can still go on the waiver wire and pick up a guy who's going to give you, 17, 18 points. So when you're looking at really the value there, I think I'm not giving away Calvin Ridley in exchange for Lamar because I just think I'd rather have a guy who's going to give me consistent wide receiver production than.
So you have Drew Brees. Drew Brees just went down. You have Calvin Ridley, and you have 2 other, stacked. You're stacked at wide receiver. You're not willing to give up Calvin Ridley for Lamar Jackson.
No,
not a chance.
What?
No way.
Calvin Ridley is like going to be a top 10 wide receiver by the end of the year, man. He's too good.
I know. Who was the highest on Calvin Ridley going into this year?
Now.
You clearly aren't high on him anymore. You just want to give him away for chump change.
I'm trying to get in the playoffs and win a championship.
Let's not spend too much time here. Let's move on to the next one.
Yeah.
I think the running back that I think we all agree is probably the best running back schedule to trade for. It's going to be hard to get him, but Derrick Henry, his playoff schedule is delicious. Jacksonville, Detroit, and Green Bay. That's about as good as it gets at the running back position. Derrick Henry has been on fire lately. Running back 3 is racking up the touchdowns. Obviously, this guy is going to be tough to trade for. But kind of what would you guys be willing to give up to get a guy like Derrick Henry? Like this guy is going to be arguably your best fantasy player if you go out and get him for the playoffs. How much value do you think Derrick Henry holds in terms of trade talks?
I think you'd have to give up. Obviously, if you're trading for an RB1, I don't know if you're going to want to trade to RB1, but I think a fringe RB1, RB2, and a wide receiver 2, I think something like that is what you'd have to do to get anywhere close. And like, like we said, it depends on what they have, where you could mix and match that with maybe a better tight end. Who knows? Somebody like that. A little something like that. A little barter.
Yeah, I think you have to give up a really good running back and wide receiver to get a great Derrick Henry and a great playoff schedule. So you have to give the fantasy owner.
It's not going to feel good at
yeah,
first.
It's Derrick Henry. Like
once playoff season comes, baby.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm looking at kind of some players here, and you look at like schedules and stuff like that going into the playoffs. And James Robinson is one guy that sticks out to me. He's obviously been the waiver wire darling, running back 4 on the year, 1 spot behind Derrick Henry. But you look at kind of some of these matchups he has coming up. He has Pittsburgh this week, but in the playoffs, he's got Tennessee, which isn't bad. But then he has Baltimore and Chicago to wrap it up, which isn't what you want. So I think if you can pair James Robinson with a consistent wide receiver and go out and get Derrick Henry, I think that's something that you can consider.
Yeah, I like that.
I think I'd try to lowball it a little bit more. Just throwing that out there, but
yeah, but Derrick, I mean, you think about the running backs that people want, right? Like you got Dalvin Cook, Kamara, and then where does it go from there? Derrick Henry, right? Like Derrick Henry is the next guy up. Like, I mean, this is one of the best in fantasy. Like, you're going to have to give up a lot to get Derrick Henry. And that's the point here. But we're thinking, based on the playoff schedule that he has, he's going to give you the best chance to win a fantasy championship based on the running back being the most valuable position and him having the best schedule for the running back position.
Right.
Yep.
So if you do want to make the push to get him, you're going to have to pay the price. That's for sure. The next one I have here, I believe we have a lot of Joneses in the NFL, but I believe this is Aaron Jones. Another guy who has a great schedule for the playoffs. You got Detroit, Carolina, and Tennessee. He's missed a few games with injury, but it seems like he's back. He is running back 8 on the year, so I don't think you got to pay quite as much as you would for Derrick Henry. But where do you kind of rank Aaron Jones as a fantasy running back going into the playoffs? Is he a top 5 option going in terms of playoff running backs that you want?
Yeah, I'd say so with this schedule. I think the game scripts are going to lean towards him getting a lot of usage, and he's very talented. So I think with this schedule, it would be pretty great. I think it'd be a good time. Like we said, a lot of this is based on the schedule. So this is a really good schedule based on what we've seen so far up to this point.
I mean, Gibson just put up 20 points against Detroit. I don't think Aaron Jones would have any problem the first week of playoffs. I mean, my only concern is just how much they run the ball in each matchup, because Aaron Rodgers has been on fire. They're getting more weapons back. In the receiving core, MVS has stepped up. They're just passing the ball a ton, but hopefully Aaron Jones can come back and continue to get a lot of the carries, and they can control and maintain control of the games and just run the clock. But we'll see.
Yeah, I think if Aaron Jones is the guy that you want to go for, I think this week is the time to do it. Just because you can make the argument that, look, he has Indianapolis and Chicago the next 2 weeks. The Aaron Jones owner might be trying to push that playoff spot, and if you can give them, someone in exchange for him based on those next 2 weeks are going to be pretty tough for Aaron Jones. But you have the promised land of the playoffs. I think that's kind of the argument that you have to make, is that, look, like, these next 2 weeks are going to be tough. You're not going to be able to get the Aaron Jones performances you want. So if you're in the position that you're already probably in the playoffs, you don't have to worry too much. Yeah,
exactly.
I think you can take the gamble with Aaron Jones these next 2 weeks and in a tough matchup, with the idea that he's going to carry you in the playoffs. All right, let's talk about some guys that we're looking to trade away. Some guys that maybe have been great to this point, but have really, really tough playoff schedules coming up that we're going to try to grab the value while we can. Two quarterbacks to highlight here. Deshaun Watson is the first quarterback of discussion. Is quarterback number 7 on the year. He's got Chicago, Indianapolis, and then Cincinnati if you make it to the finals.
Yeah, I mean it's just schedule strength that scares the crap out of me with Deshaun. He didn't have a great week this week against Cleveland. He only put up 14 points, 15 points. Yeah, and I mean, and even before the playoffs, he's got a matchup against Indianapolis. So
yeah, it's not a great schedule.
it's not a good schedule. And while he's, we were all concerned for him at the beginning of the season. He did bounce back. We did mention his schedule got easier, but now we're in the playoffs and it's getting harder again. So
yeah, he's riding high right now. Or not even really. He just came off a 14-point game, so
yeah. But before that, he was cooking.
But before that, he's been doing well. So there's definitely value you can get from that, and you just got to sell fast as you can.
Yeah, I think if you can try to, I mean, especially after this game against New England, I think maybe now's the time to get rid of Watson. Yeah.
All right, the next one, Josh Allen, quarterback 2 on the year. We've been
talking about the schedule for. Everyone's talked about it all year long how bad it's going to be.
We've had big up and downs with Josh Allen. He was fantastic the first 4 weeks, fell off for 4 weeks, and has been great the last 2. But you look at his playoff schedule, he's got Pittsburgh, Denver, and New England. That's about as tough as it gets for quarterbacks. Would you try to trade Josh Allen straight up for Lamar Jackson based on a terrible playoff schedule versus a great one?
I think you could probably get a little something more just based on where he's ranked. Nothing crazy, just a throw in.
Rankage, but I mean, if you're really looking at people's schedules, like I understand you could say, okay, Josh Allen's quarterback 2 and Lamar's quarterback 9 or whatever. But I mean, anybody who has Josh Allen that looks at that schedule and you see, I mean, even in week 13, he's got San Francisco. Like he really only has the Chargers left in week 12. He's on his bye this week. Like you're not going to get much value anymore for Josh Allen.
I'm just saying, like riding off these last 2 games and the fact that he's the QB2, you maybe could get Lamar and a throw in, but if not, I'd still probably, I'd definitely, I know what this schedule looks like. Maybe they're not looking at it. So yeah, it would be definitely something to think about for sure.
I think you have to propose that you get something in return outside of just getting Lamar, because otherwise you're
start high, work your way back to the middle, baby.
Otherwise you're just giving away a number 2 quarterback for a lower ranked quarterback. I mean,
yeah.
Who's going to want to ride on that?
But at the end of the day, would you, you own Josh Allen in a couple leagues that I'm aware of, if someone proposed to you, hey, like I'll give you Lamar Jackson for Josh Allen, I know at first glance you're going to say, whoa, like Josh Allen's quarterback 2. But when you really think about it, would you take that trade at the end of the day based on what you know that Lamar's most likely going to be a better quarterback than him rest of the season?
It's probable, but it's not definite. I mean,
nothing's definite.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would originally try to bite for something more. I mean, even if it's,
I'd probably counter if that happened. And then just work from there.
Yeah,
I'd push the argument that, hey, I'm not giving away just a number 2 quarterback for just Lamar. Like make the sweeter deal. You know what I mean? And I'd push that for a while to see how desperate they are to try to get a number 2 quarterback. But at the end of the day, I mean, I don't think it's gonna.
At the end of the day, I would do it.
Yeah, I think you'd still have to do it.
But I'm going to make it work for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Make you work for it.
I think it's probably, if you have Josh Allen, I don't think a lot of people are probably coming to you now to try to trade for him just based on he has the bye this week and then a terrible schedule going forward. So I think if you are shopping Josh Allen, you're probably the one trying to trade him away.
And then maybe even throw in something that you have the room to part with, I mean, if you have 2 tight ends and you're able to dump one, I mean, tight ends are a rough scramble right now. So,
yeah. All right. The next, we have a running back here who hasn't been great. But what about Ezekiel Elliott? His schedule isn't terrible, but I mean, in terms of his schedule and what we've seen out of the Dallas offense, he's got Cincinnati, San Francisco, and Philadelphia to go into the playoffs with. We've seen this offense not been able to move the ball really. What about Zeke? Are you trading away Zeke?
Yes.
I don't think you can expect what you could though normally for Zeke. Like, I think if you are trading away Zeke, you're probably going to have to settle for a little bit less than what you were hoping for when you drafted Zeke.
Yeah, the ceiling's definitely lower now this season for Zeke. I mean, they are, hopefully getting Andy Dalton back, which should be better for Zeke in the long run. Is their offensive line? I know they were banged up. You guys are the Dallas experts here.
They got Zach Martin back, but I mean, we're not getting any other pieces back anytime this year.
Yeah, I mean, Zeke just has not looked the same without Dak on the field with him. And that makes me just concerned. I mean, he's supposed to be a top 3 running back in the league, and he hasn't put up more than 8 points since week 6. And he's getting carries. I mean, he's getting 12, 19, 18. But
when you can't move the ball, you're going to run into some stacked.
Do you know how many 100-yard
boxes.
games he's had this year?
Maybe one.
I don't know.
0. He's had 0 100-yard games.
That's not going to do it.
No, I mean, and
enough.
he hasn't scored a touchdown since week 3. No, I'm sorry, since week 5 against the Giants.
Let me ask you: Would you trade away Zeke straight up for a guy like Chris Carson coming back from injury?
Yes.
Yep.
And don't get me wrong. If Zeke has an opportunity to bounce back, it's the second half of the season. I mean,
sure,
he's going to have a tough matchup against Baltimore, but he's going to get a lot of work. It's volume dependent with him, and he needs to get in the end zone. If he doesn't get in the end zone, his value is decreased tremendously. They're not finding the end zone, at least with him. So
They just weren't finding it for a few weeks there. It was,
I'll give credit. They had a good game, but no, you're right. I mean, they put Pittsburgh on their back for a while, but ended up losing. But yeah, I mean, they have a good opportunity against Minnesota and Washington. Even Washington, I mean, Washington's defense, nothing to sleep on either. But you know how Dallas and Washington are, so that's an opportunity for him to bounce back. But I need more consistency. I'd rather have a healthy Chris Carson 100% than, I mean, I'm looking at guys like Swift or, shoot, man.
Yeah, Swift's looking good.
I almost
too.
said Zach Moss. I mean, it's a situation where the workload, not for the playoff push, especially for Buffalo, but I need someone that, when they do have the opportunity, they have a higher ceiling, and Zeke, for the talent and the level that he is in the game, he is not performing, not even close to where he needs to be. So,
all right, let's talk about 2 other guys real
mess.
quick. For the same team, we got tough matchups for the Minnesota options in terms of their playoff schedule. They have Tampa Bay, Chicago, and New Orleans, which are 3 really, really tough defenses. New Orleans has been great. Tampa Bay has been fantastic all year, and Chicago has a really tough defense. So all of these fantasy options for Minnesota aren't great. But let's start with Adam Thielen as a wide receiver. We haven't talked about any other wide receivers in terms of trading for or trading away. But Adam Thielen on the year is sitting at wide receiver 18. He had a really great start to the season. Has had a big game last night on the Monday night game for 2 touchdowns. But really, when you look at what he's done this season, he only has 3 games over 51 yards. So you look at this playoff schedule, and you got to kind of look to probably trade him away. I mean, he has 3 great games coming up, which if you're looking to get into the playoffs, it might be worth holding on to him to try to get there. But once the playoffs come around, he's not. I don't think he's going to have too good of a time. So Adam Thielen, is he someone that you guys are looking to try to get the value for when you can?
I would definitely shop around. I mean,
Yeah.
and a lot of that falls under Kirk Cousins too. Kirk Cousins has just been awful.
Yeah, their offensive line's not helping them out either.
No. And, like we've said, Jefferson stepping up. Yeah, it's just not a great setup, especially pushing into the
Dalvin
playoffs.
Cook's just been on fire.
A freak of nature for fantasy players.
What do you have to say about Dalvin Cook?
Yeah, Dalvin Cook was the one I wanted to end it on. I know. Look, I mean, Dalvin Cook, like we said before, like it's Alvin Kamara and it's Dalvin Cook. Those are probably the two best fantasy players you can have at any position. I mean, we saw Dalvin Cook just light it up for the last 4 weeks. I mean, we talked about the pace that he was on, and it was ridiculous what he was doing. But when you really get down to the actual numbers of it, he had 47 points in week 8 and 38 points in week 9, but he played Green Bay, who is the worst against the running back position, and Detroit, who is a top 5, the bottom 5.
They're the bottom
running backs.
2.
Oh, okay. So it's the 1 and 2 worst defenses against the running back. I know they're fantastic games, but when you look at the matchups that he had that are actually tough defenses, he's really only had 2, Chicago and Indianapolis, right? Which he gave you still decent games, 13 and 16. But when you look at his playoff schedule, Tampa Bay, who's arguably the best defense against the running back, Chicago, who's been shutting down running backs, and he just played. He had 30 carries against and gave you 13 points. So, and then you have New Orleans, who again is another really tough matchup in the championship week. I'm not saying that you should go and just give Dalvin Cook away for anybody.
Do a reverse Derrick Henry.
Right. But I'm saying if someone is willing to give up basically all the pieces, if they're willing to give up great starting options going forward, I think it's worth considering, because I'm sure you can get basically everything for Dalvin Cook. You can get any piece you want for Dalvin Cook right now, just based on how good he's been. So let me give you a couple offers here. We talked about Derrick Henry, who we said has a fantastic schedule coming up. He's the wide receiver, running back 3, right behind Dalvin Cook, but he's 50 points behind Dalvin Cook, which is a substantial margin. So I don't think you can say, oh, he's running back 3 compared to running back 2. So Derrick Henry and
he doesn't catch the ball either.
Yeah, Derrick Henry and a middling wide receiver. Let's say, let me take a look at a couple guys.
Brandon Cooks.
Sure, Derrick Henry and Brandon Cooks in exchange for Dalvin Cook.
Now that I say Brandon Cooks and think about it, I don't know if I would do Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, you got to think about that matchup we talked about too with Brandon Cooks. Houston doesn't have. We talked about Deshaun Watson earlier. He's got Chicago, Indianapolis, and Cincinnati playoffs.
Yeah, but wide receivers are a different factor. I mean, you're looking at garbage time points as a potential option there too. I mean, they're going to be, especially if they're playing behind, they're going to be passing the ball more. That's worth a discussion. That's worth thinking about for sure.
Yeah.
Cook's just so good. I don't know, man. Cook's just unreal this year. Yeah, it's worth.
But there should be a conversation for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think if you can get another running back 1, as well as a really consistent wide receiver that you can plug in and play every week in exchange for Dalvin Cook, I think I would have to really think it over. I don't want to just give away Dalvin Cook, but I think with the playoff schedule he has coming up, he's not going to give you those 30 and 40-point games that you've been winning on. You have to, I think, reel in your expectations and be realistic about what to expect of Dalvin Cook in the playoffs.
Feel that.
All right. Well, we've done enough time prepping for the playoffs here. I'm sure we'll have some more segments as we get a little bit closer, but let's do the first half of matchups. I know we spent a lot of time on some of these other segments, so we'll try to work through these quickly. But let's go over, there's a couple teams on bye this week: San Francisco, the New York Giants, Chicago, and Buffalo. But let's start off with a Thursday night matchup. We have Arizona and Seattle. Arizona looks like it's healthy. Seattle, on the other hand, looks like they're still losing pieces. We don't know.
A lot of Qs.
We still don't know the status of Chris Carson. We don't know the status of Carlos Hyde. Tyler Lockett is now banged up. So what are your expectations on the Seattle side going into the early Thursday game, where we don't know that we're going to have too much more of a clear picture before Thursday.
Yeah, you're gonna have to do a lot of monitoring this week for practices to see how people are rolling out.
Well, I
I'm
can go
concer-
ahead and tell you that they're expecting Hyde to be fully healthy, and Chris Carson got in limited practice today.
Yep, I
Tyler
saw that.
Lockett was not at practice today.
Yep, saw that. But I mean that it's early in the week. I mean,
You want to see that. You want to see them there early in the week
Yeah.
when they've got the Thursday night game. So I got a feel. I think Chris Carson's going to be back and Hyde. I think DJ Dallas, you can probably kick him to the curb. But,
What was-
this is
what was
still a pretty
Lockett-
good. What's up?
what was Lockett's injury? I'm sorry, I just didn't
I believe it was a knee.
I don't-
knee injury.
I'm not exactly sure.
I'm pretty sure it was a sprain in his knee.
Oh well, yeah. All
I
right.
think he injured his pride by having a bad game.
He had 9.1 points. Not bad. For me, I think our realistic expectations is Tyler Lockett's probably not going to play. And I'm not 100% about Chris Carson yet. I think you really have to just keep an eye on what that looks like. But I think Carlos Hyde should be a great play if Chris Carson isn't a go. So monitor that situation. What about David Moore? Would you consider David Moore as a possible flex play should Tyler Lockett not be a go?
Yeah, I think that's an option.
Yeah, it's worth looking into snagging him if you can.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen big plays out of David Moore in the past. He's given you 4 games over 10 points this year as the wide receiver 3 for this team. And
I think this
obviously,
matchup just happened recently. Did it? Did they play recently?
they play back in week 7.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
Arizona won, right?
this was the Tyler Lockett game where he gave you the 15 receptions, 200 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So
Oh yeah,
this was the career Tyler Lockett game.
that was a
So
great one.
It sucks. It sucks to not have Tyler Lockett this week. But hey, one of these wide receivers is going to have a big game. So I think David Moore is worth taking a look at. Should Tyler Lockett not play, I think he can be a speculative add on the waivers just in case.
But pretty much everyone that's healthy in this game,
Yep.
they're a go. I think on the Arizona side, my biggest question is Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds.
Mhm.
Can you start them both? Do you pick one? Do you like one more than the other? I think Hopkins and Kyler obviously are insta starts.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you got to like what you saw with Kenyon Drake coming back off the injury. He had 100 rushing yards on 16 carries. Whereas on the Chase Edmonds side, like he only had 8 carries. He got 3 receptions. So it still looks like Kenyon Drake is going to be their guy when he's healthy. He's still going to be the main running back that benefits in terms of carries. But they think Chase Edmonds is a playmaker. I think I still give the edge to Kenyon Drake just based on the volume alone. But I think Edmonds is in the flex consideration.
I think you can flex
they
them.
can start. Yeah.
Yep.
Christian Kirk finally came off his big streak and came back to reality with 4 points. But we've talked about the Seattle matchup. This is the worst possible defense against the wide receiver position. So Christian Kirk back into flex consideration this week.
Yeah, last time they played Seattle, he got 18 plus points. So yeah, I would definitely
Play Seattle. You're in there, buddy.
He did get the points on 2 touchdowns. He only had 37 yards, but Christian Kirk, they've been trying to get him involved around the red zone. So
Yeah.
I think he can be a flex.
I think
flex
he's a
player.
good play this week.
Yep.
Yep. A lot of good options in this Thursday night matchup. Should be a fun game, high scoring game. Let's move on to the next one. Pittsburgh taking on Jacksonville. We'll start with the Pittsburgh side of the ball. Big Ben looked fantastic last week. Didn't practice, so maybe that's the key for Big Ben. Just be in the COVID designation and don't practice, and you'll be great. All 3 of the wide receivers had fantastic games for Pittsburgh as a result of Big Ben having a great game. But James Conner has been the one struggling. Are you still confident with James Conner? Are you still plugging him into your lineup every week, or is he someone you're looking to possibly start someone else if you have a better option? I mean, he's given you 5 points last week and 3 points the week before, both against bad defenses.
No, I'm concerned about Connor for the first time this season. I mean, he might have a decent game this week against Jacksonville, but then he plays Baltimore week 12. I'm a little concerned with him. I'm relying more on the receiving core in this matchup, though.
I think you can play James Conner this week, especially. I think the Steelers defense is going to give Jake Gluten free run for his money and just they're going to be all over him. So I think Pittsburgh, there's a good chance they could get a sizable lead and then be able to run Connor a little bit more. And I think there's no way they haven't noticed that he hasn't been involved the past 2 weeks. I don't think it's on purpose. So I think this would be a get right game for him. And like Ashton said, next week, that's a little scarier against Baltimore. But I think you can play him this week. And I think you can play all three of these receivers. At Jacksonville is the receiving core that you're definitely terrified of this week.
Well, yeah, momentum is just such a huge factor in football, and I think if you come off a good game in Jacksonville this week, he gets utilized more, then he can carry that over into Baltimore, and maybe see that increase in usage as well. He hasn't been getting the work, and he hasn't been successful when he does. So the past couple games, but they've been super pass heavy.
Right.
Past few games.
Who are you guys starting on the Jacksonville side?
I think it's only James Robinson for me. And I still don't feel great about that. I mean, he's been fantastic, but I think you have to temper your expectations on James Robinson. And I don't think I'd be happy to start anybody else. No DJ Chark for me.
No interest in Chark.
Nope.
I think I did say something about Cole last week, and y'all tried to shut me down. And then he had a great game.
Look, man, he had a punt return. Okay. He had a punt return touchdown. He had one receiving touchdown, 47 yards.
I knew that punt return was going to happen. I just knew it.
That's great insight out of you, man.
I dive deep. Yeah. The whole.
I think Chark's the only one you can.
Chenault,
if you're daring enough, I think you can play Chark.
I mean, do you guys trust Jake Luton in there? Have you seen enough to say?
I just think they'll be behind a lot, and he will have to throw it, and that your hope is that DJ Chark can catch it.
Do you think he's worth a streamer?
No. Jake Luton?
No, never.
What?
How dare you?
All right.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Detroit taking on Carolina. On the Detroit side, you can possibly maybe see Kenny G back. We don't know for sure. But this is the most promising signs we've seen so far is that Kenny Golladay could make his return this week. I think you can do away with Kerryon Johnson at this point. It looks like it's DeAndre Swift's backfield. Adrian Peterson hasn't been involved. So let's look at the Detroit side. Marvin Jones, is he someone that deserves to be considered in your starting lineup now?
Against Carolina, yes. This week, I like the matchup.
He's been great 4 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
But with Kenny Golladay back, is he still possibly going to be considered for you?
I think he'll still see. He won't see as much as he's been seeing, obviously, with Kenny back, but I think they're still going to utilize him.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's going to be, I don't know. I don't like it. Carolina's it's hard. They don't give up like a lot of great performances, but they are somewhat susceptible. So I mean,
Brady just ripped them apart.
Huh?
Brady just ripped them apart.
Well, that's Brady, okay.
Yeah, but typically they don't give up too many points to the wide receiver. It's more to the running back position. Obviously, we've seen that they can give up big games, but typically they're not wanting to give up a lot of points to wide receivers. I still think I lean Kenny Golladay if he's healthy over Marvin Jones.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But yeah, I think you have to be realistic about what to expect from Marvin Jones with Kenny Golladay back. I mean, he started off the season really, really slow with Kenny Golladay playing. So just something to think about. And then the next question I had was TJ Hawkinson. He had a disappointing game against Washington, but you're still playing Hawkinson,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
Okay. And Swift looks like he's a weekly start now. He should be in your lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move over to Carolina. Christian McCaffrey is supposed to miss this week as well. So you have the Mike Davis question once again.
His swan song.
What are you doing with Mike Davis? It was disappointing, but he had Tampa Bay last week.
Yeah, I've had him, and it's been hard because he started so hot, and then things have gone downhill real fast. But this is the get right game. This is the Detroit is the worst running defense in the league. Actually, the Packers are 30th. They're 32. So yeah, and this is go time for Davis. We don't really have a lot of clarity on Teddy's availability this week. If Teddy isn't playing, are you playing anyone past Robbie? Are you playing Robbie or like with confidence? How do you feel about the wide receivers, even in a plus matchup?
Yeah, I think if Teddy Bridgewater doesn't play, I think Curtis Samuel is actually the best wide receiver option, just because they get him involved in so many other ways, and seems to be like their best short route option, just because he runs slants, he runs curls, he runs in the flat, and he has the rushing ability. So
yeah,
I think Curtis Samuel has the most safety
Upside there.
with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you would expect if Teddy doesn't play that they'll probably have to pass the ball a little bit more, just because they should be getting pressured a lot more, and you have that garbage time option. But obviously, you feel better about starting these guys with Teddy Bridgewater playing. Let's move over to the next game. We got New England taking on Houston. This New England team has been weird to this point. But let's start with Cam Newton. We've gone back and forth with, him as a streaming option. Is this a week that you think you can stream Cam Newton?
yes. I see him being a top 10 QB this week.
Oh wow, top 10. It's a big one.
Thank you.
What about the running back situation? From what the games I've watched, Damian Harris, when he's healthy,
He's above and beyond the rest.
he's the best running back by far. Rex Burkhead gives you big games, but that's because he gets the touchdowns with Damian Harris.
He's
Goes off
so
the field.
touchdown dependent.
It has nothing to do with Rex Burkhead being better than Damian Harris.
Rex is the man.
So I think in terms of the running back you want, it's Damian Harris. If you need someone to take a flyer on, Rex Burkhead is fine, but you can get the 1 point game from Rex Burkhead. Damian Harris, I don't think, has the ability to give you that 1 point game.
I agree.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
And then in terms of wide receiver options, is Jacoby Myers the only one that you're even considering, even looking at? No N'Keal
Yes.
Harry, no Damiere Byrd.
Right.
Yep, just Myers. This is a plus matchup, so if you want to take a flyer on one of those guys, you could. But if you want to, I think the only confidence is in Myers. I think you could start him as a wide receiver 3, maybe top 30 kind of guy.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, he looks like he's getting that connection going with Cam. I mean, we saw 14 targets in week 9, 10 targets in week 8 without N'Keal Harry there. So it looks like they have a little bit of connection going. Let's move over to the Houston side of the ball. I don't know what happened to Houston's offense last week against Cleveland. We thought it was going to be.
That was the wind game, right?
Yeah,
The
but
wind was blowing like 30 miles an hour.
It was delayed to start the game, and then it just turned into a nightmare after that. There was nobody that you were happy to start on the Houston side. All of them were very disappointing. But where's your confidence level at with some of these options? Deshaun Watson. We don't expect David Johnson to be back, so you got Duke Johnson, Will Fuller, or Brandon Cooks. Where do you guys stand with those 4 guys?
I think this is going to be a bounce back game for Cooks and Fuller. I think they'll be able to put some work in against New England here. I know they had, wasn't a great week this past week, but I expect more from them this week against New England.
Yeah, I've got more confidence in Fuller. Well, actually, now I'm thinking about it. Okay, he might get Gilmore. Is he healthy again? Do you know? Stephon Gilmore.
Hmm.
Yeah, and maybe Cooks might be the better play, honestly, if Gilmore is gonna get all over Fuller. This is a top 10 wide receiver defense on the fantasy points allowed, so it's a little scary. It could just be a low scoring game, but I don't want any part of Duke Johnson. I know that for sure. I think Fuller and Cooks are somewhat okay. I don't know how I feel about Watson in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm okay with all these options on Houston side. When you really look at what the Patriots defense has done, they started out a lot better than they've been lately. And when we saw the Jets 2 weeks ago fare just fine with the New England defense, Jamison Crowder, Brashad Perryman, like they were both great against the Patriots. Stephon Diggs the week before was great. The Ravens, none of the wide
Gilmore
receivers.
was out against the Jets, though. I will say that.
Yeah, but I mean,
But yeah, it was really bad.
Yeah,
The Jets did that to you.
yeah, the 49ers put up 33 points against the Patriots. So this defense hasn't been fantastic as of late. So I'm not as scared as I normally would be against the Patriots defense. So I think I'd still be okay with all these options with Houston.
Cool.
The next matchup we got is Tennessee taking on Baltimore. As we said, Tannehill has been kind of disappointing as of late. It's another tough matchup for Tennessee. Where do you guys stand with some of these Tennessee options?
You could start Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I guess you want to play Derrick Henry. Do you think AJ Brown gets anything done against Baltimore?
I'm still sorry, AJ Brown. His big play upside. I mean, he's had one disappointing game, which was last week against the Colts.
And he had a 70-yard touchdown he could have had.
Yeah, I mean, he dropped a big touchdown. So
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at one play would have changed that outcome for him. But the weeks before, I mean, he was on fire for 5 weeks. So I think you still have to start AJ Brown.
How about Jonnu? That's probably the biggest question mark. I think kind of the fringiest.
Yeah.
Just with the tight end landscape, he's not getting a lot of usage or a lot of receptions, but he's getting touchdowns. And what else do you want from a tight end? I mean, if you can do a streamer, I think I'd go that route. But Baltimore's kind of middle of the road against tight ends, so it's not like their greatest position to cover. So I think there's a possibility that Tannehill's getting rushed up on real fast and maybe could do some dump offs to Jonnu, but
I think you still
feel good.
Yeah, I think you still play Jonnu. I mean, he's gotten the past 2 weeks, he's gotten 10 points and 8 against Indianapolis, right? It's a tough matchup, but I think you still play him.
that rushing touchdown. Or what rushing?
You made it look like he was walking right on in.
What about Corey Davis? Is Corey Davis someone that you consider? I mean, when you really look at what he's done in fantasy this year, he's had 9 points or more in every game that he's healthy, except for the goose that he gave you against Chicago.
I don't like this matchup.
I mean, he was the better option last week.
If I could pivot from him, I would. But if I had to play him, I mean, I'll just not watch the game.
That's fair.
We hope for the best.
I'd play him over DJ Chark against Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
That's scary. They're both scary. I don't
Yeah,
like
I mean,
either one of
neither of
those.
them
Can
are
you give
great.
me a better option, please? I'll
I
take
think
Jacoby Myers.
What we've seen from Corey Davis, I think I'd rather play Corey Davis.
Jacoby Myers or Corey Davis?
Jacoby Myers.
Thank you. Next.
All right, on the Baltimore side, we've already said we've been disappointed with all the options that Baltimore has to offer. We had somewhat of a decent game from Mark Andrews for what seems like once every blue moon.
Yeah, boy.
Is your confidence back with Mark Andrews?
No, but you still have to play him.
Not 100%.
I mean, you need him to get in the end zone. I think this is a matchup where he could do it. Tennessee's defense has not been great. I expect the Ravens to have a pretty good offensive game here. I'm hoping for it, but I still don't want any of those running backs. I think it's Lamar and Andrews for me. I don't even want to consider Hollywood, especially if Des Bryant's going to be out there taking all the receptions away. Right, Ashton?
Yeah, Dez is just top of the line.
I think if you start any of the running backs, I think Gus Edwards is the
Edwards, yeah,
only flyer that I'm considering.
I agree.
No
I think-
Hollywood Brown?
No,
I think I'm gonna have to bench him this week.
Yeah. I mean, I told you earlier I was willing to cut Hollywood Brown if need be. So I don't think I'd start.
This is when I'm gonna bench him and he's gonna go off and I'm gonna freaking lose it.
I think you're okay with that.
I think that'd be the the rational decision to bench him.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't really gone off in any game this year. So I think
I don't think he's gone off in his career except for his like first game last year or something. I don't know the last time he's broke 100 yards. Somebody,
week one.
give the stats.
Week one, he had 101 yards in week one. That was it.
This year?
Yep.
He's gonna
Not great,
Tyler
though.
Lockett me. I know it. I just know it.
All right, let's move to the next one. Philadelphia taking on Cleveland. We talked about it a minute ago. Houston against Cleveland wasn't great, but the weather was a factor. Where are we at with the Philadelphia options? We saw Miles Sanders my start of the week last week and got his touchdown stolen by
That was
Boston Scott.
stupid.
So where are you guys at with these Philadelphia options?
How you feeling about Fulgham there, Ashton?
It happened, man. We called it out, and Alshon Jeffrey wasn't even a part of it.
Listen,
Look, guys.
See, the worst part is I'm actually more confident in Fulgham after last week, just based on the fact that Alshon Jeffrey was not involved whatsoever. He had one target,
His
zero
first game
receptions.
back in 1,000 years.
Yeah,
I
but
told you
Fulgham
they're
still had
gonna
five
ease him
targets.
in. I'm more worried about Jalen Rager's impact on him.
No, I thought, Rager's I think Rager's the number one wide receiver in this offense now. I mean, he
still had
had
5
but his
targets.
targets are there.
Carson Wentz is just so bad. I do not know what is happening with that guy. Maybe it is the offensive line. He's just like worried, doesn't want to get hit. But man, it's not good for them. But this is the game to start the wide receivers. Cleveland is just giving points away to wide receivers. So would you order it Fulgham, Rager, and then would you say Fulgham, Rager, Goddard was pretty much where you're starting? Or I'm assuming you're not even considering Jeffrey.
I'd flip it. I'd go Rager, Fulgham, Goddard. Just based on what the looks have been like.
I'll just change it and be Fulgham, Goddard, and then Rager.
Oh, dude. That's
Goddard
big.
over Rager.
Mm-hmm.
Zach
so.
Ertz, they said could be designated off the IR. I don't know if that changes anything for you guys.
Nope.
Not at all.
Thanks for
right.
asking.
Is he someone that you stick on the end of your bench just to see what happens with him?
No. Not right now.
It depends.
That means I have to give up?
If I got the space, I'd do it.
I mean, tight ends are tight ends, you know.
Oh, I know.
You
Let
never
me know when
we're
he
supposed
starts
be
to.
good.
Let me know when he starts to act like one.
Yeah, when he remembers how to play football. I agree.
All right, I have narrowed down my list of possible Cleveland players now to Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Is there anybody else
Got
you want to talk about?
Austin Hooper. I think Austin Hooper should be.
I've given Austin Hooper so many chances, and
He's been good this year. He just had an appendectomy. Give him a break.
he
Jeez.
has not been good this year. He's been good one game. It was 11 points.
That's this year, though. That
He's
counts.
a tight end, dude. He's a tight end, and he's getting the looks.
He's
with
tight
OBJ
end
going.
26, dude. He's only missed 2 games.
I know the start of the season wasn't great. Okay. Who started heating up there? 11.9, 8.2, 7.7. How are you going to say that's not
That's
something
not
for a tight
great.
end? It's a tight end. Are you kidding me? Who
You
else?
can get- you
what
can
else
get
do you
that-
want?
You can get that from a waiver wire tight end every week.
7 points, 8
Yeah.
points, 10 targets, 6
Every single
targets.
week. I don't care about the targets. They don't score points.
Okay. Would you play Jordan Reed over Austin Hooper?
Not Jordan Reed, but there's probably options on the waiver wire that I'd play.
Okay, I think that's
Jordan Reed's not
ludicrous.
playing this week, so I would definitely not play Jordan Reed.
I'd still play Jordan Reed.
Bye. The Jordan Reed on bye.
Yeah, I think that's nonsensical. But that's fine.
All right, let's move over to the next matchup. Atlanta taking on New Orleans. This should be fantasy options galore for New Orleans. We have the Drew Brees news. Obviously, we don't know if it's going to be Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill, but you would assume if Jameis Winston is named the starter that he should be a fantastic streaming option this week.
Should be.
You'd hope so.
I mean, would you have confidence picking up Jameis Winston, knowing that even if he's named the starter, Taysom Hill could have a big role in this offense?
Yeah, that's the thing that scares me is Sean Payton's just obsessed with Hill. I don't know what the usage is going to look like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really too worried about Hill. I think Jameis is going to be the starter. I think Peyton's leaving it up in the air, so people have to game plan for both. You know, I think that because a running quarterback and just a wild man, Taysom Hill, I think Jameis Winston's going to be out there. But I mean, I think you can. I mean, if you're real desperate and you have to know there's no in between. It's really low or really high. That's kind of where I don't think there's any in between for Jameis Winston. But we've seen him throw the heck out of the ball to both teams. He doesn't care. You know, he's just slinging it. It's scary. But I still think Thomas, I mean, would you play Sanders in this matchup?
Yes.
I think that's the question.
If Winston's a starter.
Okay. So Winston's in, you're starting Michael Thomas, Sanders, Jared Cook, feeling pretty good.
Yep.
Okay.
But let me. This is the worst part about doing a podcast with you guys because I play in so many leagues with you all. It's hard to really.
I want to pick up Taysom Hill because he's tight end and QB designation.
Right. So if you play in the ESPN league, there's something to keep a lookout for. Is Taysom Hill he's eligible to be a tight end or quarterback. I think this week, even if Jameis Winston's named the starter, I think Taysom Hill is a fantastic ad. You plug him as a tight end. I mean, he can give you a 20-point game legitimately this week just based on how much of a part of the game plan he is. Because you don't have to play him a quarterback. You play him a tight end. So I think he is possibly one of the best pickups in terms of waiver pickups this week, even if Jameis is the starter.
You can play Winston and Hill.
Yeah, you have to. But what about on the Atlanta side of the ball? This is a tougher defense with New Orleans. Where are you at with these options? Let's start with Gurley. He's been kind of one that, you know, he has to find the end zone. We've talked about before, but
and he does just
he
that.
Tends to do it. So where are you at with Todd Gurley?
I'm still starting him.
I don't like it, but I think you can start Gurley.
Does give you a lot of yards. It's usually not pretty, but he does score touchdowns.
Yeah, I think you can start all the Falcons.
You playing Matt Ryan this week?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
If especially if Ridley's healthy.
New Orleans defense hasn't been like shut down. I mean, they had the good game against Tampa, but that's probably one of their best defensive games this year. I think they just haven't really been shutting anybody down completely. And this offense, it's going to be a humming. So I think your regular guys, Calvin Ridley, as long as he's healthy, Julio Jones, Hayden Hurst. Yeah, I think I like that. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yep. I mean, you would hope with Atlanta coming off the bye that Calvin Ridley's ready to
Yeah.
go, but he wasn't. He was working on the sideline with trainers at Monday's practice. I didn't see the practice report today. I don't know if you guys saw if he had a limited practice or a full practice.
I didn't see yet. Let me see if I can find.
But it's at least something to take a look at. Make sure he's a full go before you're plugging him in with 100% confidence. All right, and the last game for tonight's show, Cincinnati taking on Washington. Let's start with Cincinnati. Is Joe Burrow in play as a streamer this week?
I'll let Ashton answer. See what he thinks.
Yeah, you can play him.
I agree. This is just another one of those offenses. They don't seem like they should be good, but they string it together every game with a offensive line that's not great. I think Burrow's been sacked either the most or the second most in the league. But they get down in games, they got to throw the ball. I don't see them getting down by a substantial amount towards against Washington. But Alex Smith, like Ashton's been talking about, he's having big games. He's just not getting any touchdowns right now. But the offense is definitely moving better than it has in quite some time, I'd say. But you're kind of limited on your playmakers with just Scary Terry and Logan Thomas on the receiving side. But I guess you got J.D. McKissick, Mr. Target Monster himself. But I feel like you don't have someone aside from Terry to like stretch the field, and that's kind of limiting them. But
Cam Sims.
What has he been doing? What's he been doing for me lately?
I mean, what do you want to compare it
That's
to?
all I need. But yeah, I mean, on Cincinnati side, Joe Mixon, you hope is he playing this week, Stephen?
I mean, you never know with that guy, man. He's like Michael Thomas. He's like, you get to Sunday, and it's like, oh, never mind, he's not playing. He's still listed as questionable. They are expecting him back this week, so unless there's some sort of setback, he should be a go. But in terms of the wide receiver options, Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins, we've seen Washington shut down wide receivers, but Boyd and Higgins have been good.
Yep, I feel good about them.
Yeah, I'm leaning Higgins on this one.
Big Higgs.
Yeah, Higgs been great. On the Washington side of the ball, Cincinnati is not a great defense. So where are you at with the Washington options?
Leaning a little bit more towards McKissick in this matchup, but I think Gibson could have something close to a repeat this week as well. I just want to see Terry get more involved. Maybe this happens. I don't know, this week against a poor Cincinnati defense. Yeah, I mean, if Alex Smith can continue to throw 300+ yard games, and I'm banking on him maybe getting a touchdown or two against Cincinnati to Terry, maybe 1 to Cam, maybe 3 to Logan Thomas. Terry needs to find the end zone with Alex Smith. I need to see that.
I think
Scary Terry is the wide receiver 9 on the year.
Yeah, I'm really happy.
So good
with what I've seen from Terry. I mean, he seems like he's quarterback proof. He's matchup proof. He's everything proof at this point. I mean, he would be fantastic if he had a better quarterback, if he had played for a better team, if anything was really in his favor. But I mean, you look at what he's done. He has a ton of targets. He racks up the yards. He's been great. I want to say he's really high up in terms of targets this year. I'm looking it up as we speak. Hold on, I'll give it to you in just a second. He is 5th in the NFL in targets this year, which is fantastic.
They haven't been the prettiest targets, but
he has
they're there.
2 less targets than DeAndre Hopkins. Can't ask for much more than that. So I think you got to continue just to plug Terry in and believe in the guy,
Absolutely. You got to believe.
But yeah, I like J.D. McKissick.
I think you can play all these guys. I think you can play Gibson, McKissick, Scary Terry, and Logan Thomas. Would you consider streaming Alex Smith?
I think he has a good matchup against Cincinnati this week.
I don't want to, but
I'd consider him.
I think you probably have to. Like, some people are in the situation that they probably have to consider it. Yeah.
You play Winston or Smith this week?
I know what he's gonna say.
Winston. I mean, the upside with Winston is so much higher than Alex Smith. But it's the scary. Alex Smith is going to be the starter. Alex Smith is going to be the only one playing quarterback, the only one throwing passes. Whereas New Orleans, I don't know what's going to happen with Drew Brees.
And Smith has played a couple of games now. Seems to be getting a little bit more comfortable as well.
Yeah, I mean, he gets the yards. He's got to throw some touchdowns every once in a while.
Very wise, very wise.
But I mean, if Jameis Winston is the quarterback for the New Orleans Saints, this dude could have 35 points. Like, he's just going to throw the ball all over the place,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I like how it was just snuck in there, you know?
You gotta wait. You gotta wait until the hour 30 mark. Nobody's left. This is it. All right.
You guys don't know this, but in a few of our recordings, if you get all the way to the end and after the outro goes out, there's probably like 3 or 4 different episodes that like we continue talking and say kind of funny things that it's
Blooper.
That's
but
great.
nobody ever listens
blooper
to it.
segments.
So that's okay.
The real listeners out there. Now they know.
Yeah,
You wait till the end. You might get some
Yeah,
little
go get yourself
presents.
an Easter egg.
It's like a Marvel movie where you got to watch the sneak preview there.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys. Well, that wraps it up for our first half of the matchup. So we will do the second half on the next show of the week, and maybe give you guys some more surprise segments. Who knows? You have to wait and see. But if you guys don't have anything else,
we probably need to keep the next one a little shorter.
if you guys don't have anything else, make sure to check us out on all of our socials: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast. Send in all your lineup questions. Send in all your waiver questions. Who to drop, who to play, who to start, who not to start. Everything you got. We'll be happy to help you out. But that does it for now. Goodbye.
Yeah, that was really, really long.
That was really long.
Top 2 yards leaders for wide receivers got traded this offseason. Do you know who they are?